Oh, is it? Oh, this is on volume down here. And where is the chat? Okay, hold on. I gotta find the chat, you guys. I know you're out there somewhere. I don't see it.
Click on this.
I'll click on this.
Just right there on the name.
El Chato.
You can on this, and then pop out chat, and then drag that wherever you want. You gotta drag the bar.
Oh, there's a bar. I can't see the bar because it's blending with purple. No glasses here.
Upper purple.
Upper purple. Hold on. There we go. It's probably a better view here. Does it show the people? Where's the people? In the other stream. Oh, there it is. I can see it in that one. Okay. I see we have a delay as well. Alrighty. We don't need that here. Okie doke. And I'm guessing that you're the one that's out there?
I don't know.
Oh. All right. Well, let me get my bucket of brushes that I took to the game store. That's going to be real helpful. And my little baby that I was working on. You guys are going to love how my slippers match my outfit. I should probably say the greeting. But before I say the greeting, I want to get the mini. So let's cut the front of this off. Where did he go? Here he is. It's not what it says. The box is not what it says. Okay, so the box is there. Yeah, did you see that? Those terrible, terrible not matching shoes. All right. I have got a little something. We're going to finish this up today. It's in its last stages. Well, I mean, maybe except for the base, but I don't have any bases that are the type of base that he wants on his. It's going to be Alexa talking about the big snack.
Outside potty.
Okay, and I didn't get a chance to take her out, so now that everything's going, I'm going to take her out.
Yeah, she's waiting patiently. She's being a real good dog. There we go. Okay, now I can see better. Okay. So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever it may be, wherever you may be. This is Captain Maddlove coming at you live and in person from the captain's quarters. Today I have for you, yes, you know what? We were having technical issues over here too, and that puts me about 15 minutes in the hole. So hopefully there was somebody that was going to show up, but they had to leave early. And hopefully they have enough time to at least stay for a little bit. Now let me double check and see. Here she is. All right, so this is what we're going to be working on today. How are you doing, Blade Mark? How are things? This is what we're working on. And the really cool thing about being at my desk, actually, I may potentially have. Hold on. Do not judge me for my shoes. Just don't do it. They are really comfortable, and I'm having a wee bit of a challenge with that fractured heel. So these super, super sexy yellow slippers are for the rehabilitation of the bones in the foot. All right, this is what we're going to be working on today. And actually, I feel like, there we go. A little bit this way. Sorry, that's all crooked. Hold on, let me get a little bit straighter view. Let me see if this pulling this corner down. There we go. That's a little bit straighter view. And I continue to forget the name of this mini. Like, just every time I turn around. It is a Conquest miniature. It is part of the Old Dominion group. Oh, well, sometimes it's nice to have relatives to visit. Sometimes, you know, it's not nice. Hopefully in your case, it's nice to have relatives visiting. There we go. Sorry about that, you guys. So we've done the conventions and everything, and we've done the whole rearrange the studio, how to do some filming. There's just a whole bunch of stuff going on, and it's just, I'm sorry. Now it's like I'm on a ship or something, right? And I have to get pliers out to adjust this. So we're going to go with that. I'm hoping this is as far back as we get. I'm hoping that it will give you a good view. I honestly feel like maybe she could use a darker background. There. I also feel like maybe the lens is dirty sometimes. All right, so is there, we just have that one blade mark out there. So this is an Old Dominion game piece. It is from Conquest. And what we're going to be doing is dialing in her details. And what I want to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tall part of that support off, and we're just going to go with, you know, this little part here. I actually had a little short one, but don't know what I did with that. But that way we can focus in on it. We can pull it in a little bit and get a little focus on it. And then we can just kind of, you know, rock and roll right on through it. So the brushes that I'm using today actually are a little bit different than what you're used to seeing me use. And when Geek gets back in, hopefully he will be able to put a few. Actually, what I'll do is, you know, after the stream is over, I will have Geek go in and put the links for the products. I'm using a new brush line, and that is that's not the ones I'm using. I mean, they do sell those. But the ones that I'm really super fond of are these. They are called the Teflon Tiger Dry Brushes. This is from Chronicle RPGs. They're right there. Website, chronicle.cards. And this gentleman's from Australia. I met him at Origins. I tried these brushes because Elric's Hobbies, that's, you know, our #1 sponsor, and he sells these, so you can go. It's probably easier considering shipping from Australia. It would be to go if you're in the United States to go to Elric's Hobbies. Oh, that's nice, Blade Mark. That's really nice. It's nice that it's nice that you enjoyed them being there rather than, you know, it made things more complicated. So this whole set has a lot of different types of brushes in it and a lot of sizes of brushes in it. So and they're, as you know, how I feel about synthetics. I'm not saying I don't have my Kolonskis. I do, but I save them specifically for a lot of fine stuff when it's all said and done. In the meantime, I'm a big fan of the Teflon brushes simply because they last so long. And this particular set has a lot of really good choices for brushes in it. It's got some angle brushes. It's got the flats. It's got the most amazing dry brushes. Like, there's a whole set of dry brushes from this size all the way down to really small, all the way down to smaller one. But the brush I paint with the most is this one. That's the one I use the most. I use this one too, this 0, for doing some stuff. And let me see. Then I have some, of course, you know, that I'm using. Oh, look at this little tiny dry brush. I do that for stippling and dry brushing. It's so tiny, it's nice. And I've got the Chronicle. Yeah, I like this one too. When I'm painting terrain, then I step up to the bigger brushes. Here's another one of the dry brushes. I think I stepped on that one. I'm losing its head. Flat. And I actually think I'm missing a couple because I think they're in my other case. I took them with me, but they come with the whole pack comes with a lot of brushes. This isn't even all of them. So I'm pretty fond of all of those. And again, like I said, you can get those at Elric's Hobbies if you're in the United States. If I don't know if it's cheaper, like if you're in the UK, if it's cheaper to get something from Australia or if it's cheaper to get something from the United States. So you'll have to figure that out. But if it was really expensive to get from the United States, then you could try the Australia outlet. And hopefully I have, what I do have for some reason that is just, like I'm a real freak about cords. I really don't like them under my feet and such. And I can't figure out why there's so many fracking cords under my feet. Like when I pulled the studio for the last convention, I must have just gone wacky-do. Oh, here's some more of those brushes. Nope, that's actually a different brand. Darn it, I thought that was another one. I know I'm missing a couple. But what I need is the water bucket that used to be on my desk. So hold tight just a second. I gotta go find the water bucket. It's like I don't even know where everything is. It's so weird. We had a D&D game as I was painting at the table. And I was thinking, there she is. Yep. Just maybe I had it at the D&D table. Oh, you love those shoes. They don't match a thing. So I got my water bucket. And the only other thing that I think that I was missing was some refresher on some of these colors. But you know that wet palette kept them really good. And there is a blue, a really dark blue. It's phthalo blue red shade, but there's a really dark blue that I was using on her. And you know, I was traveling and I was painting her while I was traveling. And I just could not even figure out what color blue it was that I grabbed to finish off the ends of her bow, her arrow, her bow and arrow. It's crazy. I think maybe I did some painting while I was at Origins and I might have implemented some of that really dark Prussian blue that I use. Prussian blue doesn't have the clarity that the phthalo blue has from Chimera. So I apologize. I had planned on spending a respectable 2 hours and knocking this out. And now I really only have maybe about an hour of the time for the lesson left. We are going to be going to a game store when I am done here, and we are going to talk to them. They want us to see them about teaching in their store. See, that abyssal blue is actually blue-black. Actually, it's gray. Wow, it's a really super dark color gray. Actually, you know what? That'll be really good. Let's get some. The reason is because, you know, that's supposed to be, well, you know, magic. That's supposed to be smoke, right? But let's see what happens if we were to take some of the phthalo blue and drop it in here and mix it with some of that gray. What I get. The very, very darkest French ultramarine blue ever, like marine blue. I can't really say that that's what I'm looking for. No, it's got a little bit too much of the black charcoal color in it, and I don't want to add that to her. So I'm going to go with the deep blue, which is another scale 75 color that I have, and see what that brings me. Basically, I'm looking for like a really super deep blue with a lot of saturation. I definitely want it to be a blue though. That's why I'm going to mix this with it. And still yet, I don't know, it's still, well, it doesn't help that I mixed it over that. Maybe that'll actually help. Yeah, I really, I like that right there. Yep, I'm going to just tune that one in. So that's mostly phthalo blue with the tiniest bit of deep blue in it. All right. Then the other thing we're going to be using is some white ink. I'm just going to use the latex. I mean, I'm sorry, the latex, the Liquitex for this. I was actually using some new colors while I was at the game store this last round because I picked some up in my travels. I didn't have the right paint, so I picked up a set of the AK, like the starter set, and I was pretty happy with that. Their colors all have really good clarity. Again, that's just the Liquitex ink there, pretty generic. I don't know if you want to call it generic, but easy to find. We'll call it that, okay? And then you can see that I've got some, like out here, I've got some magenta out here, and I've got some different shades of purple that I'm working in, and some different shades of blue that I'm working in. And I felt like I needed to lighten this up, get the graduating part of that a little bit more. It actually looks pretty darn good in these lights where you can see it all, but it is a lot darker when we are at the game store. So I was trying to compensate for that with lightening up some areas so you could really see her. Now that I look at her a few days later, which I highly recommend for everybody, I feel like it's coming in like way better than I thought it was. So I need to get like up in underneath of here. So there's a few things that we need to finish up with her, and some of that is going to be in reference to details. Some of that is going to be getting areas that don't really have the paint where you want it tracked in. And so to get in there, I probably would just look at this, and you'll see there's not a lot of glow here, and you'll notice that it's mostly purple. So I would just get into that medium purple, kind of mix one in between. There's a lot of mixing when you're doing something like this, because I'm graduating the colors, creating a gradient between them. That gradient is really created by mixing the two colors from opposite ends together. Yep, and it's kind of a pinkish, purpley pink there. And then I'll go in and make sure I get my colors where I want them, probably going a lot darker up underneath the skirt, right? As you can see, as you come out here, there's a little bit of that purple glow going on. So I'll probably change that up. And one of the nice things about having a brush with so much body to it is going to be the ability to wet blend, which comes in really handy when you're creating gradients. So really, it's kind of choppy, and so what I do is I just come in here and I break it up with some of the darker color that I'm using, and then I'll come back in with some of the lighter color and get a little bit of that going on. Right, then dry the brush off, come back for the lighter color, and really it just wet blends itself right in there. looks like we've got a little bit of blue going on up here on the skirt, so I'm going to just grab some of this blue and work it in. This is, what she's standing on is, kind of looks like it's crystal, fire, maybe some rocks. If you allow the paint, you apply enough of it that the paint goes on wet, then you can get some wet blending going on. It'll very much help with your expression. Now we'll take this really dark blue and I'm going to come right up in here with it underneath her skirt, and I'm also going to drag some down from underneath her skirt and into the crystals so that we can feed the colors into one another and get some symmetry in the color. I'm going to get a nice flat. I will get it wet and dry it off, and I will use it to kind of brush down the colors. And what that does is it blends them a little bit for you. So it looks like we're going to be moving our, just let you guys know that looks like we're going to be moving the Patreon possibly over to a YouTube situation. That's looking like it's going to be a pretty high probability. And this coming year in 25, there's going to be a lot more video content, and because we're going to start traveling, and I'm going to be taking Captain Maddlove to some game stores and doing lessons there. That being said, we need that time for when we go live. So you'll notice that I'm just mixing lighter variations of the color, coming in here and touching up over the purple areas. It's very thin so that you can see the back painting coming through it. It's important that you get that. Underneath of here, we want to get that nice deep dark blue. There we go. Oh, they are. So the new Army paints, I actually saw some folks using those and got a chance to kind of look at them while I was at Gen Con. It was very briefly, but I do have some in the studio that I have tried, and you are correct. They are definitely, their new formula is definitely leagues above their old formula, for sure. No doubt about that. You'll notice there's, magenta up there, so we want to probably get into a little bit of that magenta. And again, I'm doing it thin so that I can cover and still see the underpainting that I did coming through. And you'll notice that. Yeah, also, I can glaze over some of the purple areas and get a variation of the color. You'll notice I'm not going all the way up on this, trying to keep it a little lower. I think you'll be very impressed when you try them. They're quite affordable, and it really is just such an improvement in their original formula. The way they go on, how nice and even and matte they dry. I was going to go talk to them at Gen Con, but I just did not have time. notice I've thickened it up a little bit, and I'm kind of putting that in some of the lower places here, glazing over some of the purple to get a little bit of this in there. You know, it gives a real good purple look to it, but also it kind of draws everything towards the front, right? And then I'll take some of that off and come in here and get a little bit more glaze of the reflection on here of that color. Maybe right here, because we've got it all dancing around her feet. And then this color that I've mixed that's got a little white in it. You know, it's kind of pinky. Get a little bit of that. And come right in here in the areas where we've got the lighter portions of it. And this is actually where your glow kind of starts to develop. I'll get it in some of these cracks. I'm going to kind of load the brush heavily. It's kind of watery, and some of it will actually mix with, just automatically with the pink that, or the magenta rather, that I had put on there in the first place. Now there's a little bit of excess water on the brush to do that. And basically I'm kind of going in here where the hot areas are and allowing that to fall in those pits. There. Let me see how that works. This is about those details that you may otherwise not think of. This is the part where you dial it all in. I want to go right underneath it here, and I'm going to get, because of the glow she's got going on her, on the front of her body, mostly comes from the bow. But now you can kind of see that it merged. And while it's wet, I'll grab some of this white, really mix up some white. And you'll notice it's kind of sloppy, like it's sloppy and watery, and I've got like quite a bit on my brush, and I'm going to come in here and put almost little pools of it, and it's going to bleed itself around into the color that is wet. So it'll create its own little track. It will have capillary action that will wipe the side of the brush off right there to get that going. And it'll have a very organic look to it simply because of the way that it's done. I just load it up on the brush and kind of blotch it in there. And there's some bleeding that goes on from that that creates a really good organic feel. Now, you do have to allow that to dry, and it does take a minute. Okay, and while that's drying, then we'll be able to finish up our bow, and then we'll come in and do the dark shadowy part on that. And once you've got that in there, one thing you can do is you can go back in and kind of pick a little bit of that excess up out of the pools. If it's going somewhere you don't want it to go, just kind of take a look at it, and you can just dry your brush off and kind of leach it out of that area just to make sure you don't get too much. Okay? And then you let that dry and bleed about. And when you come back and put the darker areas in, again, it really makes a lot of sense. Now I'll take a little bit of that, and I'll use the side of my brush to get a little bit more of that vibrant expression right here, just a little bit more. And it's pink. I've tinted it with pink so that we're getting that little bit of pink glow actually showing really good. And I'll take a little bit of that pink, really thin it, and just do a little bit of over glazing with it in some of these areas here that are more blue, but not necessarily the blue on her body. Kind of like it. So I'm just sort of mixing it in there so you can get both colors expressing the glow. That whiter pink is going to need to be right here. And this is where we're going to kind of run the inks and get some darker colors. So I'm going to take the white and we're going to run it in there, but I just want to make sure I've got some real good expression of the lighter fire drying. She's got some of this lighter purple, one with more pink in it, so I didn't really make it opaque. And we're gonna come get in the recesses on her shirt with that to get some very strong expressions of the magenta in the blue. What we're not going to do is we are not going to let it get on a boob and ruin up our glow. Kind of hard to get this on the camera and paint it at the same time. But you can kind of see what I did there. There we go. There. Focus that back in for you. Sorry, wrong way. There you go. So I'm going to glaze a little bit of that up in here and drag it back out. I want to get it out of the recesses because that's going to be a job for, in some areas, black, in other areas, the lighter ink. I've got that thinned, and I'm going to come in here and get some expressions of that on the arm area. In these cases, this actually will be kind of the darker color. We do want to get a little bit of that expressing into this area because of how we've got it placed. I saved it for last so that we could use a glaze to do it. I'll use it thicker when I come around these areas here. So this is the darker. The outside is darker. The inside is lighter. On her fire colors, we're considering it like magic fire, like a djinn, even though she's not a djinn. I gotta get underneath here, sorry, it's way upside down and weird. Okay, when we get this color and we bring it in, we want to use the side of the brush. Okay, notice that it just kind of lines the outside of the fire, and we want that. And I'm going to go all the way up into the blue because when you cover it with blue, it'll the ends it'll make a nice dark purple like what you can see. So I kind of glazed one color over the other to get those effects. And this is just the straight magenta that I'm using, but I used it thicker. I didn't water it down so drastically so that I can get the tops of everything that's kind of swooping here to get the feel for this. When we come back in, it'll correct it back in the other direction so that you'll get your blues and everything back in there again. Now you'll notice that the light is coming from the front here, mainly here. There's some coming from down here, but most of it is coming from the bow. I kind of dimmed the lights here in the lower fire portion, so that we, I'm going to come in here actually and correct this too, so that we can kind of deepen it up a little bit. So there's not quite as much glow happening under her feet right there, because that dress is glowing off of the bow and off of this little tendril of fire jumping up here at her. So I don't want any glow in this hole right here, really. And then I got to get the blue, because the bottom of that is so blue, and we're going to need to come in with that really dark blue that I made. And we'll get some blue mixed in there so that we can deepen that up too, over by her body here. Just, you can also do a black glaze on that if you want. I'm going to dry the brush out, and then I'm going to kind of move that blue around a little bit while it's still wet to get a thinner coverage. I'm going to run a little bit up into there. Again, we're looking for that symmetry that brings all the colors together. So I'm spreading it out a little bit so we don't just get it, all compact in one place. It can cause your subject to look a little static. So I'll thin it as I move away from it, and then just sort of glaze the other areas. And what that does is it pulls, you can see how it pulls all the colors together because we're glazing. So some areas I don't hit and other areas I do. And you'll notice that really does go a lot better with the back of the skirt and what she's got going on there. And then I'll thin it even more, just with a little bit of water, so that I can get a little bit kind of coming right into here. Moving into the fire. And then I'll rinse the brush, dry it on the paper towel, and then drag that out. It'll thin itself as you drag it out and move away. Picking up the pools so it'll dry a little better. I want to kind of keep out of that light area, go back in there, make sure that's light enough, because it's got one of our little highlights in there. There. And just kind of dragged it out. And what it does is, colors start to overlap, and then they create new colors. So you do want to make sure that you're working with your family of colors, because otherwise you'll make, really weird colors. It kind of creeped into here, so I'm going to come in there and just sort of pick it up. Just get a little bit more of that purple. That's that medium purple, and come right back in there and correct it, just so I can kind of keep my colors the way I want them. I'm going to come up the back of her dress here. I'm going to use that really dark blue that I got. It's almost a black. And now I can start to make, lining that is this going to be like, my last lines. And so I can start to do those a little bit more, I guess you would say expressed. So a little stronger on the stroke. I need to bring that up into here. Using the side of the brush, I'll get the edges, the tip of the brush to get some little areas here. Go up underneath because, you know, it's really dark. This is a mixed, that's the really deep blue that I mixed from that abyss blue. It was kind of gray. Trying to keep it kind of all under and on the edges only. If I make a mistake, I keep a brush at my desk that is just wet with water. That way I can correct things. Because what I don't want is I don't want to ruin all of the nice color expressions that I already have going on. I don't even know if we would call it ruin, but you know, I don't want to change it. I like what colors I've got here going on, so I'm going to keep it. I'll put a little bit of that up here in some of the wrinkles and little back blades, and what it does is it just ties everything together. There you go. So this becomes like the darker area, which we can highlight with a small amount of purple if we want to, but it's kind of like, it starts to give you the idea of where things are coming from. And then I will take the, at the bottom here, I will take the darkest of the purple, which was mixed. And honestly, as long as I'm here, I'm going to put some of the, this is the Eldonville Violet from Scale 75. I'm a really big fan of that color. And I'll use that instead because it's got more clarity. And then again, I'm going to choose the areas that it goes. And it's going to be fairly strong in its expression. And what I'm going to do is hit the edges of things. I'm going to be coming into this little blue area a little bit because that does have purple. And again, this starts to tie it all together. I'll get in here and I'll go along the edges of these, and what's going to end up happening, you'll see as I do this that the colors that are there start to look stronger and they express louder, actually because I've added shadow. So you can only get them so loud without adding the dark. So you'll see how it starts to, let's bring that in for you. There. You'll see how it starts to express a little more visually. You can really see what's going on. And we're probably going to stick with the purple as we move away from her here, as we move away from the base. That's the plain Eldonville purple. Eldonville, I don't really know how to pronounce it. I wish somebody did, and I could get it right. I get it wrong every time I say it. It's also one of my favorite colors by them. So it's embarrassing that I can't say it. And right up in here, we'll get a little bit of that, but I definitely don't want it that strong. So I'll thin it and come up into these recesses. That's a very thin here, definitely right there, okay? And then you can see it start to take real shape there, okay? Keeping even still yet a lot of the colors that are underneath. Now I'll get that kind of a magenta purple. Actually, that color right there mixed with magenta will make an amazing magenta purple, like a little more red violet, that you can use to create the gradient. So here I'll create that little bit of a gradient on those parts that I painted, and then I'll take the parts that are coming away, farther away from her, and really hit that a little bit with some of this, so we can get, again, a little more gradient dialed in, a little bit lighter, right? And then I'm also going to take that, I mixed a little bit on a higher magenta level here, and I'm going to kind of come in here to the flame, and we'll get in there with a little bit more of the magenta here in a second. I'm going to thin this on the brush, and I'm going to spread a little bit of that as we move away. You'll notice it starts to really darken up, and that's okay, because the next thing that we do is just going to make it pop. So, but we got to get all of this in there so that we can have the right colors doing the right thing. There you go. Rinse that brush almost completely off just to get a little bit more of that glaze in there. There we go. And notice I've already got it developed on her shirt, and her face has actually got a little bit of a magenta glazing going on. Then, you know, moving from area to area on your miniature is like really important so that you can get your builds that you want going on. This pink up here isn't quite dry. I can see that this arm area is, and so one of the things that we will do, let me hold down for a second, and so that ink, oh, it's already there. That ink, what we're going to do is we're going to take a tiny bit of the magenta, and we're going to put it right here on a little palette. I don't know that you can see that here. Boop. Let's put it, there it is. It looks really bright pink. It's actually really bright magenta. But you guys are seeing like a really bright pink, and what we'll do is we'll get a real bright magenta out of that, right? So it looks like a soft pink with a magenta hue to it. Not pure white. You know my deal with the not pure white. I just painted all over the side of my desk. I'm just flopping away. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do is we'll come along here, and we're gonna take water, sorry, and we're gonna lube the tracks, as I call it. So we're gonna just take a few points, and we'll put some water in these recesses, okay? Now I'm gonna pick the water up out of recesses that I don't want it to travel as much, okay? Then we're gonna pick up some of this, and we're going to touch a point where the fire is hotter. And what the water will do is the water will move that around for you. It's called capillary action. If you use inks to do this, I mean oils to do this, it's really crazy. It travels a lot. So you get little bursts of light, and it's gonna spread lightly onto the paint, and create a tiny little bit of a filter over the magenta and purple that you've got laying down there, because I didn't seal it, and by not sealing it, when I put the water on it, the paint itself is still absorbent, or it's like it's got a kind of a felty finish. It's called tooth, and that's what the ink is traveling when it bleeds out away from the line, it's getting in the tooth of the paint. A little bit more water if you want it to move a little bit, you know, further. There we go. And I don't want it to be, I made it pink so that it would bleed a little bit and not be super harsh like white would be. And then I'll come in with the side of the brush again. So this creates a filter, and I'll come in with the side of the brush again, and I will do the sides, and that's going to look so vibrant. It's not even going to be a joke. So again, we'll take, and I guess for the fire on the ground, we'll get a little bit of this magenta and we'll put it in here. A little bit of that white ink, a little bit of water. And I'm not going to wet these. I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to put them in these pooled areas where I want it to be. It is going to do the pull into the paint thing. It's just not going to travel through all of the recesses like it did on her arm as much. It'll maintain more so kind of where I want it to be, rather than deciding for itself where it's going to go. It will travel in the channels, so you'll have to be ready for that channel to be propagated by the ink. This works like really good if you're painting necrons and you need to do all those little channels in one of their croissants. You know, they got all that detail, those lines. And if you end up with too much of it, you know, you can always glaze back over it, so don't stress yourself on it. I mean, it takes more time if you got to go back and do that, but you shouldn't stress yourself. You can paint right over it. And you can see where I've created the areas where the light is coming from. I'm using a big belly brush with a real fine tip. That works the best because it'll carry a lot more paint in the belly, so you can get a lot more of this going on where you want this action. As it dries, of course, it's not going to be as light, and that's actually a good thing in the case of where we're working. And one thing you can also do, if you want the ink to be, wherever you want the ink to be gathered, that's going to be your lightest point. So you can totally turn your mini upside down and let it sit like that, and it will work for you. In the case of the front arm, I'm going to take a tiny, tiny bit of this the kind of electric blue. I want to say that is by scale 75, and I don't remember which blue it is. I think like a Caribbean maybe, but the sad part is that I traveled with this and ended up using other paints on it, and so it becomes a little bit of a weird situation. All right. So in this case, we're going to come along this sleeve, and we're going to put water in the recesses, but we're going to use this super light blue so that we can have these two colors come into the bow up here, and you'll be getting the blue and you'll be getting the magenta, and therefore it makes sense that the outcome is purple. All right, and I'm going to add some more ink to that, so it's like really kind of a super Arctic blue looking color. And we're going to come in here, and again, we're going to propagate these little recesses. Remember that you'll be coming in here with a darker color, but you'll notice that it just pulls it all along those little channels. And I'm just touching it with the tip of the brush. And then I'm going to move this out into here. And this part here, I did not put the water. So it's going to be something I have to control versus it just taking its own route. I'm going to get plain white, and I'm going to do the indentations on her arrow. Wait, did I get them all? 1, 2, 3, 4. I did. And again, over here I want this to be the hottest point of light. So I was really working to control the ink here myself. Where she's got her hand on the bow and everything comes together. I'm sorry if I'm flipping off the camera right there, just going in the wrong direction. And then while I've got that going on, I'm going to change from that big bellied brush to a liner. Okay, and a liner is going to help me in the placement of the white a lot better. I'll be in more control of these smaller lines as we come out here than I would be if I went with the big bellied brush. And I am using a thinned version of the ink that is slightly tinted blue to create this. And I am going over areas that I have glazed with the color so that your undercolor underneath of this is showing through as well. I will take little areas and change the shape. That is for the effect of it being organic and creating movement. Some areas I will put the plain white as we get up here really close. And I will need probably a couple of coats in the area that I make real fine for the super bright white. But I'm still going to filter over it a little bit just because, you know, the plain white to me oftentimes can be just a little disruptive. I don't necessarily hit every single spot that is a recess. Breaking it up, again, that breaking it up will create that lifelike effect that we're looking for, the movement. Right now I'm using the one that's tinted slightly blue. I think you can see how it starts to make a little sense here. And you start to see a little life. I'm going to go for the plain white because we're getting right up here by the cluster where all the fire comes together. And even that plain white still has ever so slight a bit of blue in it. And I'll go back for the blue. I'm going to do inside this circle. Oop. And this circle. Oh my God, my aim is so off. Hold on. we're going to paint the edges of that blue anyway, so it should be fine. Well, hello there. How are you doing, Vicness? I'm so glad you like it. It's we're just finishing it up. I'm doing the fine tuning on the details to get some real sharp areas. Whoa, we don't want to do that. Let's come back in with that wet brush and pick it up. Making sure that you've, taken the moisture off the belly. There we go. Of the brush, not her belly. We're going to take some of this. It's whiter. It still has a little bit of blue in it, okay? And we're going to hit these areas on her bow. I'm sorry, her arrow. And as we come to the front here, we're really using a little bit of that really bright white ink, like in a second layer. And it's just barely any blue in it at all. How are things with you? How's your project coming? I hope you're learning from that and that you're enjoying the journey. You should be able to access that class that I sent you the picture of. That class is about painting faces and the colors that are in the undertones of the skin. Oh, you just woke up. Oh, well, then you're not even all here yet. Okay, I'm going to rinse a little bit, of the ink from the brush, but I'm not going to rinse all of it off so that I can come in here and get some little bit of this really bright highlighting on her hands. I'm going to touch her knuckles with it because I feel like being this close to the hottest part, we're going to get a lot more expression on the hand than I've got. Skin is translucent, so we want to keep that going. I'm also going to turn her around here where you can't see, okay? And I'm going to do that same thing, but I'm going to try not to have too much moisture on my brush. And I'm going to do that same thing, but she's got some little fingers back here that are going to have to get a little bit of that love, a little bit of the bow. There's like a tendril on it that comes out back here, and I kind of want to get those areas as well. Gonna get another brush with just water and just scrub these areas a little bit. Just to tone it down, what I'll do is I'll thin a little bit of the blue, and I can bring that in here and then bring it back so that we can get her blue hand expression back in there as well. There we go. Oh, Yeah, we were actually in the hole about an hour with all technical difficulties included. All right, so back to her building the white on the bow. We were working on the front here. Let's make sure, you know, we got all the areas. You can see I've got the white again with just barely any blue added that we're working with right here. And you can see some areas as you turn her, like say the back of this right there. Let me focus in on the part that we're on. Let me go the other way. There. You see how there's so much of the white where it's all gathering together, coming out. And we want that because we're going to be working with that. That's going to be what we use as we really build strong shadows to be the other side of what we're looking at. So it's our complementary situation is these other is going to be the shadows. See, there's no light. It doesn't look so bright until you add so dark the shadows. And so right now what we're doing is we're building up the white, mind you, not pure. It's ever so slightly tinted with another color, and we're building it up. We're finding all the areas where it is so that we can now I'm going to go back to that little bit more blue-white that we had, and we're going to get this little opening here, and we're going to get this little opening here. A little back dragging helps it, and then we're going to come. I also like the areas, hold on, there you go, these areas where you have like a spot, they're almost shaped like a teardrop, and what I'll do is make that teardrop lighter and then drag it out from that. It creates, again, that movement. So I kind of pick the brush up in those indentations and feed a little bit more ink to those indentations. There's one here that we could get, and a little bit here. So we're going to change that. I do have to come in here, which is really hard to show the camera. I got to even pull it off the camera to even get it, you guys. It's a little recess she's got in a little hidden spot. I'm going to get a little bit here. If you don't have a brush that you can, or don't have the practice for the control, one of the things you can do to get the control, just like I taught you guys in most all my classes, I tell everybody, just make little dots. Just make little dots. There we go. I don't have anything here. Or here. I can see actually a few places I missed. I'm sorry you can't see this right now. I know it's out of focus. All right, let's come around. I want to make sure I've got some of this area right here is just bugging me. There we go. All right, I'll make sure I got some of that in all those areas. All right, so now you can kind of see, back out a little bit. Now you can kind of see what's going on here. There. Now I pulled that white down, right? Now the other thing that we'll need to do is we'll need to get in here, get a little bit of this magenta, put it out here, and we're going to have to get that brush dried, and we want to make a little bit of white ink magenta. Okay, well, the reason we use ink is because it's really, really fine, and also because you can get that capillary action going from it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come into the areas that are the whiter points, you know, hotter fire down here on the ground, and we're going to just add a little bit of, again, that looping the tracks idea in some areas that I'm going to want to put a few little hot spots with this. Pinkish white that I've made. All right, now we'll use that same liner and we'll go in here and we've got like a pinkish white, and really I'm just gonna like touch the hottest spots. And again, keeping in mind that you can come in here and change this because you are going to be adding your magenta here in a minute. Now that you've got this layering all done, I want to sweep a little bit so we get a little bit more of the layering. You'll see it happen. A little bit of water right here. It seems to want to run through this crack that is actually part of the assembly. And I don't really know where that takes us, but we'll see in a minute. All right, and again, over on the other side, I've got a little area here, and here, and there, and there. Here. Bring it up, down, a little bit of water. Oh, I can see that recess there again. It's the crack in her mold. A bit more. There we go. I'm just going to make like a little scoop here. And a little scoop there, here and there. I don't want it to be too distracting from her bow, but if you look at it when I put her up, you're going to see that they are a family, the bow and the fire on the ground. Okay, and that should work good for a nice little underglaze support as we come back in with it. Notice how the sleeve toned down greatly. Okay. So I'll come back in here to just the pinpoints on that. Now that it's got the white, it went in there and the tooth allowed it to spread onto the paint and create like a little bit of a, it's basically movement, but it's also a little bitty filter. And I'm just picking up dollops of that on my paintbrush and coming in here to some areas that could just be the points of the highest light. Okay, and that is going to soften again. I don't have a whole lot of reflection on her. If you'll notice her body here, there's not a whole, I'm gonna, hang on just a second. I gotta do a weird thing here in order to get some of the bright right there, and the reason is because of the highlight on the breast. So I do need to come in here and make sure that I get some of the highlights. And in reality, I'm gonna have to really glaze this a little bit with blue because of the color that the highlight on her breast is on this side. But it'll soften, so not to stress this. There it is. I'm going to take a brush that has a little less mobility on the tip and come in here and just pick up a little bit of it. It's got a little strong right here. I do want that reflection, but I don't want it that big, because it's more coming from the other side. So, and I'm going to come in here with some blue and I'm going to glaze this, and it's going to change its personality altogether to more of like a lavender. but I don't see on this side. Oh, I see. Actually, I see an area where I got purple still yet on her boob there. Sorry, I gotta fix that. No, it's gotta be darker than that. No, it's gotta be. Uh-oh, matching this color is gonna be a challenge. And now we fix a mistake. Okay, so to mix the color the best of your knowledge, and I will tell you that making those mistakes sometimes can cost you hours of correcting. And so what I'm doing is I'm just going back and forth between the two colors that she has built, that I have built on her side of her breast here, and feathering them back and forth into one another over the mistake that I made. The mistake was 2 big spots of purple in an area that was actually smooth blue reflection. And we just can't have that. That won't do. If a judge were looking at that, it would get noticed. And this is actually a display piece. So, but getting that gradient back in there can be a bit of a challenge. What I can tell you is that white covers everything. So if you can cover it with some white, not pure white, but a color, you know, a color of the blue that we got going on here, and you can mix that and go over the spot in this particular situation, then you can come back in with the darker color as that dries, and you can fix it. But oftentimes it's actually good to know how to fix our mistakes. Geek does not. We have some videos being edited right now for you guys, for classes in general for people, and Geek doesn't have him edit the mistakes when I fix things out, because he said people need to know how to fix stuff, so not to edit that out. And then while I'm doing this, one of the things that you got to do is you got to glaze that color in, because you may not make it exact, and glazing it back in its new formula is helpful to your color build. It's a lot of back and forth, let me tell you. But they were, seriously, you probably couldn't even see them on the camera. They were really obvious to me, though. Now, as long as I don't go back in there with any purple, I should be okay. Oops, that's no good. Too much water. What am I doing? It's got so much water on my brush. I think I'm still getting used to using these. I find myself having a lot of water regularly. There. Okay, now while I'm in here and I'm into this color anyway, I've got, I know that ink's not completely dry, so let's not mess with that. And I'm gonna, the bow still is not 100% dry, so we're not gonna mess with that. Down here, this dried like a lot better and a lot faster. So the last thing that you'll do on this fire, bringing it in, is gonna be we want to get those areas that are the dark purple kind of fine-tuned in again. Just some real dark areas, right, that are at the end. And when you're doing this, you are using a fairly thin bit of color. So you want a color that has some transparency to it, that you're not just covering everything. Now I'll just put that right here for you. I'm going to mix it thin so that you can see through it. This is the darker of the purples. That's the Endeville by scale 75. I'm going to put a little bit of it up at the front here, coming into the fire. And again, tracking a little bit of it back, right? Same thing on the front. I get a little bit of it coming in here. Glaze some of that magenta right there. Glaze a little bit of that blue. And then I'm going to take that off the brush. Excuse my sniffles, you guys. I got a little bit of a something. Hey, Geek.
Talking to me?
Yeah, do you think that you could get some, make a medication, get some medication for me? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, now I've got the magenta thinned, really, really thin, you know, like an ink consistency. And I'm going to hit these areas that are lower, right? Farther away from her body, we'll say, with this very thin version of the magenta. I'm also going to glaze a few areas. Now you'll notice I drug some white right out of the hole on that one, so it's okay. I'm just going to kind of mix it in and then let it set and come back. This actually is the consistency of a wash, okay? I'm going to take it and I'm going to go over some of the purple, backtracking. Come in here with a little bit heavier dose of it so we can really get a little bit of that magenta popping. And I'm kind of using it like a watercolor. And I think that you'll notice how it's kind of got some clarity to it, trying to stay out of the areas that are wet right now. There we go. You see? Okay. And then we're going to let that dry. We're letting the sleeve dry, and we're going to come in there and fix that in a second. And I think that the bow is dry enough that we can do our fine tuning on the bow, which really kind of shows you. I'm going to use, because I feel like the purest magenta, not purple, the purest magenta I can get my hands on is Chimera. So I'm going to use that because I know it's going to do exactly what I want it to do. If I need to lighten it, I will add a little bit of white ink in order to, you know, get what I want. Being as it is, it's very highly pigmented, so it's going to have a completely different level of coverage. Watch. Okay, you see, so I really just can't even say enough about this color. You see how bright that is? Okay, that's what I want. And I'm only going to get it from this color. Okay. And we're going to take that. That is a thinned version of it. We're going to take that and we're going to come in here in some of the areas that are internal to this. And we're going to let that bleed into the white. And we're even going to carry it down onto some of the purple. And now you'll have to take some very, very thin layers of that. You really do want to thin it to tie everything in, because it's a different world. But it is going to really make all the magenta so much more wholesome. Okay, you see how it just, there's no comparison. It is the purest I have found. So.
It's just being poor.
Oh, please, put her on the couch, would you?
No, she's in her seat. She's just hanging her head off the edge.
I think if you try the couch, it will.
Let's try this again. See, your head's higher than the rest of your body. You got something under your boot. Now you got a face mask. Maybe it was just too warm. We'll just cover the bottom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, thin. You want to thin it. And glaze some of it into these areas so that you can get that color spread around. Because otherwise it'll just look really intense right where you've put it and not so much where you haven't. I am using it pure on the tips here where it gets darker. That will also bring some purple in there and dial that in here in just a second. Again, using the side of the brush to catch those edges. I'm going to go into some areas that have a little bit of that white bleed on them. Remember, from the tooth that it has, and I'll go in there and I'll catch just a little bit of those areas, because this color is going to glaze over it and create some extremely intense effects. Remembering that fire moves, so we don't want to paint it in a static formula. So being as organic as you possibly can is a really good idea. Okay, and now we're going to take and we're going to move into some areas that I want to get a little bit of that expression here, I think. As you look at it, okay, one of the things that you can do is you can pinpoint your points of light by taking a little toothpick and drawing the lines to where are you going to be seeing that color of light. And any place that toothpick touches, you know, you're going to see that. Like this would probably have more reflection on it, but I'm really trying to focus it all just right here and a little bit of reflection on her. By taking this out of the picture, I actually get more heavier volumes because it makes you focus not so much on this area, and it doesn't all blend together, which I really just don't want it to all blend together. That's important. So now that I've got this mixed, what I'm going to have to do is take a little bit of white. I'm going to use white ink in this case to make this magenta a little bit more pink. You'll notice it's extremely popping. Sorry, my palette seems to have gone a little crazy. And I'm going to use this color as we get a little bit closer up to the towards the arrow, and I'm going to use it on the edges. Some of it, a little bit of it, will bleed, and that's fine because it's got the ink in it. It's going to bleed into a little bit of the white, and that's okay because it's going to give it that really nice magenta appeal. I use the side of the brush, the belly, to get in here and develop this. I'm going to go on to the purple and the blue a little bit, as well as like towards the pink and then towards the blue. Notice that I did start in the middle, towards the pink and towards the blue. Okay. Towards the pink and towards the blue. I'm going to take a little bit of that magenta in its higher form, and I'm going to get the edges of her, the very front of her bolt head. Take a little medium bit of it here and catch the edges. I drag some of it off so that it glazes. Too strong. There we go. And not to stress yourself. There's going to be times when you're going to find that you do have to go back and readdress the white. It's going to happen. But there'll come a point where you'll look at it and go, yeah, I got it. And once you've got it nailed, you'll know it. It'll speak to you. Using that same color, I'm going to come in here and catch the edges of her other arm. I'm going to blot a little bit of it into some of that white ink. You'll notice that a lot of the white ink areas start to turn really pink as we go over with this color. Don't want to completely cover that hand. There we go. See how much better that expression is? Excuse my sniffles. I'm so sorry, guys. Taking a little bit of the pink that I mixed, coming in here and getting some of this area on that back arm. How do I pronounce that? Eldandil purple. Mixed with the magenta will create some of the most intense purple violets that ever you've seen. And I'm going to mix a little bit of that up to get some of this back area underneath the arm, in the armpit, and in some of these shadows. And it's a very thin mix, and what I'm doing is I'm glazing this color into the shadows in order to pick up the resonance of more of that magenta. Very, very thin. Okay. I want to thin a little area of it out right here. There we go. So we can come in here and we can use it to make, it's more of a purple than it is just the magenta. But it has a lot of magenta in it, so it definitely talks magenta when you're looking at it. Now we'll take this color and we're going to use this color as like a secondary color as we come back here. You'll notice onto the arm, right? And we begin to work that one in. It's a lot darker, so painting the edges with it will really make some crazy effects. Getting a few little spots of it in some prime locations is going to really make things pop. And so the outer edges of your flames, as they're swirling, maybe a little area where they drop or something. And the more times that you put it on, the darker that layer becomes, and you're going to find that it is a really gorgeous red violet. We're going to put that color in between the magenta and scooping down into the purple. You'll also want to take very, very small amounts of it and travel upwards towards the more magenta area. And you might even want to use little dots just so that you don't overdo it. It's extremely dominant. As I do this, I choose little areas broken up around it, maybe even using the side of your brush again. You learn to use the side of your brush. Okay, do you see how much louder it's getting? If you glaze something with this as you're going down and then you come in with the blue, it's going to create a stunning color of purple. This is the magenta mixed with the Eldandil. I think that's how you say it. I'm not perfectly positive on that, but they should sit me down and give me a class on pronouncing their paint names. What do you think of that? Keeping in mind that this is definitely lighter than the blue you're going to add at the end. Therefore, adding it over the white as you come to the end makes the color make sense. So you're going to put it over those very white places that you made where we're getting really dark on the ends here. Do you see how that's working? Not completely, like don't get crazy and just cover them all, but where we come to the end and we're going to add the blue by adding a little bit of this into or over, glazing a little bit of it over some of the white that we've put in, it's going to make the fire, the color of the fire, make sense. It also creates that more mystical, magical appearance. Now, while we've got that and we're working with that, that again is the magenta and the Eldendil. We've got some of that mixed and add a little bit. Whoops, my palette is actually drying out. Well, that's unusual for me, huh? We're going to mix it a little bit more towards the purple side. And we're going to come in here and doctor the sleeve that we put that lighter color in. And when you glaze over those areas with this, not necessarily the points that you want to stay the lightest, but maybe some of the outlying area of it, that color is going to really tie in, and you'll see it happen. So I'm going to do a little glaze of this, not necessarily over all the white spots, just some of the areas where I think, as you're looking at it, break it up and just choose a few spots that really resonate with you. You know, again, organic. So we don't want to cover everything. Okay, you get some rest. You get some rest, Hecatone. Thanks for popping in, mate. Okay, so you'll see that sleeve kind of darken. Oh, and look what I did. See, it happened again. It's got to be the long bristles. Oh, I got it just in time. I must have just done that. Sometimes I flick the end of my brush because it's, you know, it's pretty long, and I won't catch it, and it ends up making a little spot somewhere. You got to keep an eye for that. There you go. So it's kind of broken. It's kind of broken. See there? Now you can take a little bit of that and you can hit some of the edges of the outer areas on this fire again. You probably don't really need to. I mean, it's looking, this is really dialing in perfect. It's a secondary color, so it could help you blend some of it together. All right. And then I will take the really dark blue that I mixed. Where did it go? This one. And in this case, I've been traveling with this, so I just really didn't have the opportunity to write down everything that I've used. And in this case, when we do this, we just kind of want to get just the very, as it's swooping down here, just the really, the lower points of it. And I'm going to get the outer edges. You do want to pay attention to that flicking part. This is a moment when that can happen. Sorry about all the moving around. I got to get just these certain areas, and I'll only trail a little bit of that, a little lines of it on the very edges upward. I won't use a lot because I'm gonna have to come back in and then bring it back downward. And once I've got the edges of that in there, you'll use a secondary blue but you'll see as I'm doing this how that is all starting to blend together in a way. Be very careful not to flick the brush and end up with blue on her face. Some areas I will just pat them to add the paint so that I'm careful not to get it places I don't want it. This blue has already been spread to the areas where it needs to go, so I don't worry about it tying in because I know that it's going to. So now what I will want to do is I will want to get a blue that has some clarity. And I have this really kind of electric blue, and I'll want to just really thin that. And I want to use that to very thin. And what it will end up doing is glazing that in here, graduating it up a little bit, but glazing it in over this magenta is going to make like an electric purple. Oops. We don't want to get into any of that blue that has the gray in it. Okay, and you can do it right over the magenta and the ink that you've put on there that's got that little bit of blue in it, because it'll turn it more blue. You're going to go right over the magenta. You even have little areas where you can take that electric blue over the magenta thicker. See how that just really made it pop? Towards the bottom here, it's going to be a glaze, and actually that blue, that electric blue, really does help with the glow effect. Over the white and trailing it in a glaze, like feathering up onto the magenta. Don't go too far, okay? You want to just make sure you've got it mixed pretty thin. The first time you use it, it'll be like, you know, really, really thin, like a glaze when you're using it over everything. But when you start building it and you want to cover the ink with it, you'll need to make a little bit thicker, or more pigmented, I should say, because it's not actually thicker, it's just more pigmented. Okay, but you see how that works? Now can you see that? And then of course you're going to want to take that same color, and we're going to want to brush that into a few areas to tie in the electric vibe of it. And I kind of already did that in some areas. I'll have to thin it and glaze it in here. Maybe a little bit there. So that you can get just a little bit of its vibration going, because it is really intense. I think I'm going to take a little bit of it and just get a little there. That looks good, because we just need to get that color, a little bit of love of that color everywhere, especially since it's like right up here, you know. Get a little bit maybe on our hand there, and a little bit there. That just looks so much better. Okay, so now the electric blue is really starting to speak. All right, and then once we've got that dialed in, we're going to want to thin the magenta, and you're going to want to, we do have to thin this guy. It can be a little bit wicked. And we'll come like from the blue into, you got to get just the right consistency. And you may even, you may have to, if you're not used to working with it and you choose to do this, you may end up having to actually add a little bit of white to it just to get it to do what you want it to do. And what I will do is I will drag it back into the electric blue and forward, back into the electric blue, and forward into the magenta area, or the purple area we kind of have developed. And in the middle, it will create another color with the ink underneath of it. And then I will come back with the final on the, I probably won't make it today, but I'll come back with the final pink. See, I go back and then I go forward, right? And I pick it up so it's going over that purple that we made. I don't go all the way back over the blue because I want to keep that electric blue in there. But moving forward and backwards. So see, you'll get some of this down here. You'll get a little bit of the expression. You'll still have the electric blue. Water. And you'll notice that as it lays over the ink, it gets really vibrant. And then we'll come back in with the magenta lightened with white, and we will create the final glow on all of it. This really allows us to get it in all the places that we want it. The layering, feathering, all of that really just creates a lot more movement. Color over color. But you can see it all coming into play now. I'm going to take this and add it to her reflection here. I actually will have to mix. There's a couple of places where it's kind of between the two colors. It's going to be more of, I guess, a pinky lavender. And I'll have to come in here and fix those. And re-highlight them because I accidentally did not catch them. Therefore, they created like a water stain. And it's going to happen. There's going to be times when you're just painting along and you're just like, you know, I'm really enjoying myself. And then you're going to go, oh, crap, you know, I accidentally painted in the wrong area. And you just got to mix the color and come back. And like right there, I'm going to have to come back in here and pull those highlights back out just a little bit when I come back in with the highlighting. Which is okay. I mean, it happens. But that's where mixing colors really will help you a lot. A lot. And learning how to desaturate things so that you can come in and correct is super helpful. Because you desaturate a color and then use it in an area that you're working in. I find that the white, like I was telling you earlier, the white just really has good coverage. So a little bit of white to desaturate the color and then come back in and fix the area is very helpful. Just like that. I'll have to do it another couple times. But now when you come in here with your final highlights to get this, you know, where you want it, where I'm going to use the magenta, and then I'm going to use white ink. I'm going to use white ink just because it's so thin. And I'll put a little bit of the magenta in it. It's actually going to make a pink. So, whew, we're not going to make it that pink. Wow, that's like, you guys can't even see that because my lights are just drowning it out. It looks like baby pink to you, but it is not. It is bubblegum pink on my end. And we don't want bubblegum pink. There we go. We want like a soft, soft pink. And when we come back in here to add these final whites, I may need to change brushes. It's possible. We've already got, if you remember, when I laid the white down, I used the one with kind of blue in it. And there's a reason for that, because now these colors are going to meld together. And I think I probably want a different brush. This brush has got a lot of belly on it. Maybe like just too much for this. Yeah. My liner doesn't have enough control, so I'm going to go for a little shorter body. And what I'll do is just kind of get these areas here that look a little broken, and I will just swipe them together. Just little strokes, little lines. Come down into one and back into the other. And once I tune that all in, you see there's like these little broken parts, right? And so you just need a little coverage. If you don't want to make as many strokes as I do, then you might want to just go ahead and use, like, you know, your favorite white paint to mix with the magenta. And then we'll come in and we'll hit some final edges with the darker color. And I don't know if I took a picture of this. I hope I did at this stage. I think I did. I think it's the one that I placed for you. You, of course, will come in here and you'll get this color even a little whiter. And you'll go back to those areas that were really, really white. And you'll build them up even a little bit more right here, like right here on the front. We want to kind of graduate this color so that it doesn't look like stripes, because that creates the glow, right? That graduated color. So we come in here, we cover the line between the two with this in-between color. And that's what makes it glow. That, whoop, you can't see that. So see, now it looks like it's gradually moving out the color. You guys can barely see it because my lights are bleeding it out. I apologize. We've been working on trying to fix that. Geek is going to fix it so that the videos come out a lot clearer. You see how I'm doing this? I'm just going right through here. And I find those areas where the pink and the white, the magenta is coming together with the white, and I'll glaze it one way and glaze it the other way. And then we'll come in with like this same color, a lot lighter, like almost pure white, and just hit a few spots. I just kind of go with the flow, like right here. See, there's like a line. Can you see where those two? So we need to get that line out of there. And because we're using ink, it's nice and thin. Maybe add a little bit more there. See, it's kind of where it's peeking out. Maybe here. And then you just kind of fine tune all these spaces. Like right back there, there's one that's like a pure white dot, and it looks really weird. So in a case like that, I'll come in here and I'll actually add the magenta to it, and then drag that magenta down into the purple to kind of change that up, because it just didn't look good that way. I know you can't see that, sorry. Then I'll take some of this in some of these little recesses that are like closer to her face, where we're getting some of the highlighting going on, and add some of that there so that we can get a good blend on it, you see? And that'll resonate. It'll make sense because, you know, it's got the pink in it. Same thing here. Some areas I will just do a really light glaze with it, and it's going to create this like little feathered effect, you know, with the pink, because it's so soft. Right here, this looks weird, that shape does, so I'll come in here and just kind of grab that little area up, and then take the paint off and just sort of feather this area with the pink. And then if I want to bring it back on down, I go get right back into that purple, the one that I mixed, that kind of magenta purple, and I can bring it down and then bring it back up, and you just get your mix. And pretty soon it all starts to just like really smoothly blend together. And it'll just look like you blended the whole thing perfectly. You can always see, do you see that? So you need to work on that part right there a little bit. But you can see how maybe, I don't know, maybe this magenta came up a little bit high. And you can just bring this pink in here and kind of tone it down a little bit. Right there. There you see how it gives it that movement right there. You can get, if you want to, you can mix a little bit of this white with some super light blue, and you can go down there and touch up the areas. But I mean, in reality, you really don't need to do that, because this actually goes, once you learn it, it really goes fast. And we are over time by 15 minutes. So I won't get to those final, but this is like really, really close. We need to bring this pink in. You'll need to like bring it in and kind of like tone these guys out a little bit and bring those colors together. Remember, I just mixed a really light version of the magenta. And you don't want to do it in all the spots. You want to break it up. Break up your spots. By breaking it up, you create more of an organic effect. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just coming in here with a real thin version of it. A little bit of I used the white ink. Like I said, you can use it. You want more coverage, use your white paint, or use the Scale 75 has one that's a translucent white. And I change up and blend into the area. Like I'm going, this is dark right here, so I'll like just get this part real light, and then I'll just kind of come into the dark and just graduate it. So that way it has, you know, it's fading. And what that does is that creates kind of like electric pulses. It gives a lot more organic, natural feel to what you're doing. And it's almost done. Just a little bit more of this here and there. And we're on. Like, that's kind of sloppy right there. And you just come in there with this color. You can even mix two variations of your pink if you want. But you can see how doing this just creates a nice flow. Notice I've got like this area in between right there. It just creates a flow. And then I can come right back in here, and I can come right back in here, and I can grab a little bit of the magenta if I want to, and you can just take that magenta and come right in here and create a few little spots that are going to be maybe just a little bit more color. And as you do that, you're breaking up the monotony of it. And it starts to give that very, very much of an organic flow to it. But if you were to look at her now, see, do you see how much movement there is there, and how you're getting now movement here, and how keeping this a different color than what's behind it, you have that nice depth, that nice bit of depth right there to it. And changing this reflection up from that reflection. So we've got like this maybe making the blue reflection on her, but still it's probably going to look really good with a little bit of a glaze, because I was thinking about that on the subject of the OSL. You know, you do want your OSL to be matching whatever color you're throwing out there. So probably adding just a wee bit of this magenta over the blue is going to make a lot more sense. And it is just very, very light. I don't have to get too crazy with it, but you can see it. Just that makes a difference because now the magenta is resonating on the blue, and so it starts to make more sense there. She's very, very close. I will take pictures for you guys and post them in. We do need it. This one here is going to need like some dark tendrils right along here just to kind of give the vibration. And you can use the magenta to do that, just to create those dark tendrils. And this right here is going to need a reflection on it because it's part of the stone. These, you'll just do dark tendrils on the outside of it, and it'll be fine. You want to play that to the back. We don't want to get too much going on in the back. Otherwise, we don't get the depth that we have. See? So if this arm gets too light, that's why it needs the dark tendrils, so that it's going back. All right. So I want you guys to keep your eyes open for some videos that are going to be coming up, hopefully in the near future. I will send you guys all an email and let you know what we're going to be doing as far as the Patreon is concerned. So that you know that. Those of you that have lessons that are due from Patreon, classes with me personally, don't worry about that because absolutely 100% I will see you through on that. So in the meantime, we've learned a lot about lighting today. I think you can see how to build a fire and how to, you know, I mean, like you can see this, you do the same with just with colors of orange. If you're going to make that, you know, traditional fire colors. And you can see how I, you know, where I've got the reflections of the OSL and how I didn't, even though it would be there. Maybe you could add a few if you absolutely needed to, but I did that. The reason I did it this way is to keep this, I will add just a few little sparks, but nothing much, but to keep it to where we kind of have the fire at her feet separated from her body, and because it's all the same color, and so I'm trying to pull it apart through the lighting, really. And you'll notice that I kind of kept the back nice and dark because, you know, I really want to get that a little bit dynamic. You can probably get a couple of little tendrils here, but it doesn't really need to be anything major because, you know, this is the back. And I really want all the attention like around this part. This is how she's going to be facing you. So I don't feel like we need, there's all the colors. You'll notice I used all the colors in this, right? Just to give that shape that I wanted. And if you have any questions, please post the questions right there in the YouTube. I'll get back to you on it. One thing I am going to do that you guys may not be aware of is that all these areas that are cracks, these recesses that are cracks, I am going to mix a blue black, and I will then lube the tracks, and I will, in fact, probably the color that would be perfect would be Payne's Gray. Just Payne's Gray ink, and then we don't even have to worry about it because it's already a blue-black. So between now and the next time I see you again, you guys, number one, you know, just really take good care of yourselves, okay? I just got over a flu bug, and I'm actually going to go lie down when we're done here. And, yeah, take this medication that I didn't take. And so, you know, between now and then, when we meet again, I do want you to grab your brushes, grab your paint, grab your minis, and get your fucking paint on, you guys. And I am really enjoying seeing your work in the Discord. Thank you so much. And feel free to tag me when you're out there posting it on Instagram as well. It's been really nice to be back, you guys. It's nice to see you there, those of you that made it. And those of you that are watching late that could not make it, you know I love you too. So peace out, and I'll see you guys in the verse. Take care.